This is Basic, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
But with the electronic system, you did not have to get down on the floor and physically reconfigure all of the treadles with these little metal hook things. You would basically just change it.
This is Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. There's a column in the November 1983 issue of Family Computing magazine by Jon Zonderman. It's called Home Business: Compute, Control, and Create. A weaver combines the traditional skills of her craft with a computer and reaps more than one reward. The article is about Sarah Haskell, a weaver who used an Atari computer to design patterns for weaving and also to computer control her loom. I'll read some excerpts from the article. Wandering through the stalls at the New Hampshire Crafts Fair, visitors marvel at the intricately carved wooden furniture and the colorful glazed pots and dishes. They stop and wonder at the ingenuity of the craftspeople and their ability to devise objects for their homes that are practical as well as beautiful. Suddenly, colorful blinking lights catch the eye. A visitor turns to find himself confronted with a computer? Nestled between two stalls of demonstrations in wood carving, Sarah Haskell sits at an Atari 400, pushing keys that, in seconds, change the brightly colored patterns on her monitor. Next to her stands a loom rigged with threads of all colors. What is this sophisticated machine full of microchips doing at a crafts festival? And what possible connection could it have with a simple loom? Sarah Haskell is demonstrating a new software program called WeaveMaster. Before WeaveMaster was developed, Haskell would spend day after day tediously experimenting with abstract patterns on graph paper before even approaching the loom. That process now takes just a few hours. Haskell estimates that using the computer is 3 times as fast as using graph paper. Not only can she design faster, but with the Atari's 3-level magnification ability and split-screen viewing, Haskell can create far more complex patterns than she ever could on graph paper. The program, which runs on Atari 400, 800, and 1200 computers, is sold by Macomber Looms of York, Maine. The company has been redesigning and improving upon the loom and the process of weaving since 1938. The program sells for about $180 in cartridge form. Supplements are available in disc form and cost from $40 to $95. One version available on disc, WeaveMaster Library, comes with pre-made designs that you can use or combine to create new patterns. The first AutoCAD product was Designer's Delight, a single-function program that helps weavers set up pedal control of the loom. Check the show notes to read the entire article and for pictures of Sarah with her Atari 800. My interview with Sarah took place on November 13th, 2017.
I was introduced to the art of weaving. I was very lucky. I was 19, and it just clicked for me. I think because I'm a New Englander and a practical Yankee, I really appreciated the fact that I could make stuff to keep myself warm if I got to be a really starving artist.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the beginning, I actually concentrated on very practical things. I made clothing, I made rugs, and I eventually apprenticed for a weaver in New Hampshire, and then I ended up going to art school. I went to Rhode Island School of Design. And so those years were really spent mastering my craft, learning the technical ins and outs, learning the materials, the equipment, what I could and could not do. I learned how to dye and spin and really got an incredibly strong foundation in all of the textile arts, and also was able to explore how other countries use textiles and how textiles have been an important part of many cultures for thousands of years. And then I graduated from art school and I moved to New Hampshire, and located in a town nearby was a manufacturer of weaving equipment. And I developed a relationship with this small company, bought a loom from them, and they happened to be probably the oldest and best recognized loom manufacturer in the United States. So it was a good fortune for me to be right in their neighborhood.
Okay, and this is Macomber Looms, is that right?
Yeah, rhymes with more like cucumber, Maycumber.
Maycumber, okay.
Maycumber.
Nice. Maycumber,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Maycumber. And so I actually set up an education program for them back in the 80s and was weaving, teaching weaving out of their shop. I was traveling and teaching a lot. And so, yeah, that was the 80s.
Yeah.
And right. So I guess that kind of brings us up to about the point when the computers came in.
So how did the computers come in? Were you interested in computers otherwise? I mean, outside of looming, or
I did not own a computer at that point, so I don't think I did. Maybe my husband and I shared an IBM PC. He was a professor at the university at the time, and so I would put some money on the fact that we actually owned a PC. But so just to back up about the loom company, they were the ones that took the lead on this. So they hired a software person, and the owner of the company developed the hardware. And I was really just totally fascinated by it. I think because I'd had a very technical training. I worked on something at art school that's two kinds of looms. One is called a Dobby loom, D-O-B-B-Y, and that is an automated by a chain link mechanism, and a pedal that advances that Dobby system. And then the other loom that I worked on is a jacquard loom. And as you probably are aware, because most computer people are, is that many people believe that the jacquard, in a way, was a forerunner to the computer. I'm not sure if I really see why. Maybe you can explain that to me. But there is that connection in many circles of thought that the jacquard is the forerunner to the modern computer.
Is that the one, and I know very, very little, but is that the one where there was a loom or something I read about that was, you sort of programmed it using cards or paper or something in order to have it weave the patterns?
That's exactly it.
Oh yeah, then that's totally the predecessor to programming with punch cards. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I wasn't aware of the exact the thread that connected them. So there it is. But I knew there was one. So I think for me, it seemed like a very natural progression because I had worked on a jacquard loom. I knew how to design for it. I knew, that something was a switch was either on or off. And I, so I kind of knew the basics of jacquard, but knew nothing about computers. So when the Maycumber Loom Company started working on this endeavor, I was just thrilled. I just thought it was an amazing concept because at the time, actually, I was weaving very complex patterns that required long sequences to create the pattern. And so just to back up a little bit, Maycumber Looms, their first entry into the computing was more of what I would call a CAM system, where they designed something called Designer's Delight. And it was a single function computer that attached to the loom, and it had a single pedal down at the bottom, and it had solenoids, and it had these, I can actually send you a picture of it somewhere. I've got one.
Yes, please.
It had these keys. And so you would program the key with your treadling sequence. And then you would put that key in and turn it like a car, and and it would load that sequence, and then you would start. You could start and stop and reverse and go forward. And then if you wanted another pattern, you took that key out and put in another key. So that was the first iteration, the Designer's Delight. And then from there, they went to the software for the Atari, and still, I believe they used the single pedal to run it. It was like a large piston that kind of shoved down this pedal that had solenoids on it that would engage with the different harnesses, which are what the threads go through in the loom.
So the Atari actually controlled which harnesses, made the loom choose which.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what it controlled was basically the single. They called it the ESP, the electronic single pedal. So rather than controlling the electronic single pedal with this thing called the Designer's Delight, and there may even be pictures of that if you Google that under images. I bet there are. Anyway, so Designer's Delight was the first iteration of controlling this ESP, and then they went to the Atari, which you could then design on your Atari computer. A threading and so there are three parts to a weaving construction. There's the way the loom is threaded. There's the way that the treadles are set up. And there's the sequence with which you use those treadles. And the treadles are tied to certain harnesses. So the harnesses are what the threads go through. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. I mean, yes, sure.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I understand.
Okay. Yeah. So the Atari allowed the weaver to design something on the screen and then feed it right to the loom, which had, at this time then, you had to have something called, well, actually, no, you had it with the Designer's Delight. So the Designer's Delight had two parts to it. It had the computer system, and then it had the power supply. And the power supply was the interface between the Designer's Delight computer, and then later it became the interface to the Atari and the loom.
Okay.
And so when the Atari was the evolution, you would design on the keyboard. That information would go to the power supply, and the power supply would tell the electronic single pedal what to do, which harnesses to engage, and in what sequence to raise them.
Huh.
But at this point, the weaver still had to step on the pedal and physically raise the harnesses.
And this software, I believe, is called Weave Master, according to this article. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for putting that in. Yeah.
Well, neat. And it says here that it basically, when you were designing something, instead of doing it on graph paper, you were able to do it on the computer, and it was like maybe 3 times faster in order to design a...
Yeah. Yeah, because the old school way was filling in little squares on graph paper with a pencil and, If you wanted to rearrange things, it was time consuming. And I think more importantly, if you wanted to change patterns, so with one single threading of the loom, there are many options for the way to weave it and to treadle it. But with the electronic system, you did not have to get down on the floor and physically reconfigure all of the treadles with these little metal hook things. You would basically just change it, change patterns. It was that, I think, is the more important part of it, is when you actually get to the weaving.
And it seems to me that maybe it would be more accurate when you're weaving, because you're not going to make a mistake, because the computer is going to make sure.
Right. Right, exactly, especially with a long series, of different treadling sequences. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So do you remember how this article happened? Why did Family Computing find you?
I think that they found me through Maycomber Looms, because when I remember that article, because I think I put it on my blog when I was doing some cleaning. I found it. I think that Maycomber loaned me the equipment to go to this crafts fair, because my loom that I still have, I bought it in the 70s. I mean, these looms are amazing. They do not wear out. It was too big to transport. And at the time, I was doing a lot of demonstrating for this company. And for many, many years, I was actually a salesperson for them. I don't know if you've seen the blog that I wrote for years. Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
Okay, so the blog is called Maycomber Looms and Me. And if you just Google that, Maycomber Looms and Me, it's on Blogspot. And actually that article, that's where I'm pretty sure I posted one blog posting about finding that article.
Yeah, all right, I'm looking at it now. I will look around for that. Cool.
Yeah, look around. And then I think one of the things that might be interesting is that this type of software and hardware has really evolved. And I actually...
I should hope so.
Yeah. So now in my loom, I have a laptop with a program that runs the loom. I have a very small power supply that interfaces between the loom, and I no longer have the ESP. I have a set of pistons that drive each treadle. So the loom that I have is a 16 harness loom. I have 16 treadles. And so if I want to raise, let's say, every other harness for a weave structure, it's an air system, an air dobby system.
Mm-hmm.
And the air dobby drives down every other, so 8 of those treadles, and raises up 8 of the harnesses.
Huh. Nice.
Yeah, it is. Well, and also just to add this, the physical challenges of weaving a 16 harness, 56 inch wide piece of fabric. Now those harnesses each weigh, I don't know, a couple pounds each. So long story made short, many years ago, I developed a back injury from lifting and lowering those harnesses physically myself, even with the ESP. So it was not good for my body. So now I have an air system that, with a push of a button, all those harnesses fly up and down and make it actually possible to weave on this loom where I could not weave on it. The repetitive motion is just not good.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Seems like it would be exhausting.
Yeah. And, what's interesting is that about a year ago, so my weaving style has changed, and I no longer do highly complex structures. I do more imagery that is driven by simple weave patterns and inlaid color and embroidery. So I thought my big loom, the 16 harness 56-inch loom with the air dobby and the power supply, which is brand new because I've been working with a developer out in Washington State who deals with reconfiguring old equipment that is no longer actually built by the companies. I thought I'd put it up for sale because it was in incredibly good working condition and I just wasn't using it to full capacity.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants these looms. And I'm kind of surprised because it is a state-of-the-art machine. I don't know, whether people are just not doing what I would call complex or comp dobby weaving anymore. So I'm actually thinking about stripping it all down, taking off the electronics, taking off the air dobby, making it a more lightweight machine, and keeping it. So it's funny that, here I am talking about, raving about how wonderful the technology was, but I personally don't use it anymore. So, I do use it if the last time I used that loom was a year ago, and I used it because in order to weave on it in the state that it is, I have to use the electronics, the air dobby.
I see. You can't use it in a manual fashion?
I could. Yeah, I could. Yeah, I probably could. I don't know why I hesitate there, but I'm hesitating.
Let's talk about this photo, this wonderful photo of you in the magazine article. I'm going to describe it.
Like a hippie. Yeah, I know the photograph.
You look a little like a hippie.
I've got big glasses. I'm a hippie. Yeah.
And you got the big old prairie skirt and the big hair and the big glasses, and it's great. And so in the picture in the magazine, you're sitting there. There's an Atari computer and a TV set connected to the loom, and you're working. And then you have a separate picture on your blog. It clearly looks like it was done from the same photo shoot. You're just sitting there with a TV on your lap.
Okay. I should bring that picture up myself too. Why don't I do that so I know what you're talking about here?
Anyway, I'm just sure. But I was just wondering about that. Was that done by the magazine, or was that something that you did, or how did that pictures come about?
I think they sent a photographer. As I recall, they sent a photographer to the site to do the article, to interview me. Yeah.
I assume you don't normally do your computerized looming work outside in a field, though.
No, and you know what? As I recall, I think that there was some electricity problems. Like maybe I got a little shocked because it was wet grass. It was wet grass. Yeah, it's kind of a visual oxymoron. There I am in a prairie skirt out in the grass in the mountains, and there, I've got this electronic.
Yeah. It's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Is there any chance you still have either of these programs, either the Designer's Delight or the Weavemaster? Because the Atari people don't have it. I'm wondering if you still have the only copy left.
don't think so. The Designer's Delight, I actually traded for something, some yarn. So I know that I don't have that. But I might be able to, I could put you in touch with the Maycomber Loom Company.
Yeah.
They may or may not, I don't know, have, copies of that stuff.
Sure, that would be fun to find out.
Yeah, I would think that they would have at least a Designer's Delight unit around. They don't throw away much. They've been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So how long? We decided this article was. When would you say it was? We said it was 1982, November 1983. So how long did you use this Atari system before you moved on to something different and better?
Well, I'm trying to think when they came out with the Designer's Delight. I was sort of the guinea pig for this company.
Uh-huh.
So whenever they came out with their next iteration, whenever the Designer's Delight came out, I had it. And I went on the road with them doing demonstrations at conventions and things. I'm going to guess let's see. I'm trying to think what I had after the Atari. I had Maple Hill Software. They were a couple in Vermont, and they wrote a floppy disk program. That would have been, I'm guessing, I'm going to take a wild guess, around 1990.
Wow.
But again, maybe with a little research, so it's called Maple Hill Software. So whenever that came out, and I used a big PC so my main studio computer was on wheels, and I would drag it over to my loom. And then if I wanted to use it for writing or whatever, I had to drag it over to, near a desk. I did not have a separate PC for running the loom. And so I used that software, I would say, up until about 15 years ago, Maple Hill Software, and then I switched to another kind of software, and then eventually went to a laptop, which was nice. Probably I did that. Yeah.
Sure.
Probably maybe maybe 12 years ago, went to a laptop.
Nice.
And yeah.
Okay. Did you? Just a couple questions left. Did you do anything else with the Atari other than the looming work?
Oh,
or play any games or anything?
My kids played games on it. We had some King of the Mountain. We only had one or two games for it. So my son is 31, and he actually played on that computer. So I must have had it right up until the 90s, early 90s. He would have been 4 or 5 back then. So,
cool.
Yeah, I must have had it till the early 90s, and then switched over to the PC-driven program.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Yeah. So what haven't I asked you about that time that I should have? What'd I miss?
I think just my impressions of what it was like, and I have to say it was really fun to be on the cutting edge, the leading edge. I think there may have also been an article in Yankee Magazine.
Okay.
I don't know.
Let's see if I can find that.
From about the same time period, because it was pretty innovative to be doing that. And as I said, I traveled the country speaking and demonstrating this equipment for this company, Colorado, Texas, Massachusetts, and all of New England, New York, going to weaving conventions and that kind of thing, schools demonstrating. And a lot of schools had this equipment and all of the different iterations, starting with the Atari, starting with the Designer's Delight, then the Atari, and then the different software programs. So it was fun. It was fun. But now I'm interested in different things. So
sure, as you should be.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you're still. I mean, you're still weaving. You've clearly made a life of this, and you're still interested in that. So,
yeah. No, I have. I'm very blessed, and I eventually kind of got really into education and community art, and have been doing that steadily for the last 25 years. And so, yeah, no signs of retirement, which is fine, because I don't need to. Although I am not, as you see in the blog, the Make Humber Looms and Me blog, Make Humber Looms has shifted a little bit, and I was their main salesperson, and I am no longer doing that, although I have a peripheral relationship with them, and it's all very healthy, but they are doing all of their sales in-house. And so I have stopped posting on the blog because of that. So it's a kind of, people still reference it, and I still sell the manual from it, but it's not an active blog at this point.
Yeah, great. Well, I think I have what I need. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Well, you're welcome, Kevin. Good luck.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute, there are two ways you can help. You can help fund these interviews directly by contributing to my Patreon. A small monthly contribution will help offset the expenses of making these oral history interviews. Contribute at patreon.com/Savitz. Or make a tax-deductible contribution to the Internet Archive, a nonprofit digital library that has done incredible things to preserve computer history. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate. Thanks.